Hello and good morning everyone. My name is Adam. I'm Head of Marketing here at the ISM and I'd like to welcome you to this webinar today. I know you'll get plenty of practical advice from today's session, which you can start applying to your own roles straight away. The webinar, once delivered, will be made available on demand so you can watch it as many times as you like and at your own convenience. During this webinar, you'll be able to ask questions by typing them to the box above. If there's time, we'll answer any questions you have, and if we miss any, I'll get Tim to reply at the end. Please also take a few moments of your time to have a look through the attachments. We've uploaded a couple. And the next voice you'll hear is Tim. So Tim is the next voice you'll hear. I hope you enjoy the webinar. He is a fellow and he's a fab chap. So over to you, Tim.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this session on how to get to sell to senior executives, senior level executives. Now, I've got to make a confession here. You see all this stuff on the page here about me. I love what I do, and it's been a great 30 years, as you can see by some of the run-in. But I actually focus on this, and my own experience is this, that the confession is this. I used to sell drugs. Now, I'll let that sink in for a minute for everybody. But what I really mean is I used to sell pharmaceuticals. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. My own background is in science. Some of you may or may not know that if you've been listening to some of the other webinars. By the way, don't forget to catch some of the other webinars. They are really, really good. Not just because I happen to be part of them, but there are many others who are presenting on these, and I've listened to a few of them, and they've been some really first-class things these guys have been talking about. But back to drugs. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about 15 years, and one of the key things that I learned from that is that it is extremely difficult sometimes to get senior level people's attention. And anybody who worked in the pharmaceutical industry or are working in the pharmaceutical industry, it's a fairly well-known fact that 50% of the sales guys that enter the pharmaceutical industry leave after 6 months. So it's a tough old business. And I'm sure that many of you in a similar sort of business can find it quite tough anyway. So this particular topic is really interesting to me because I've had to experience this firsthand as being a junior level representative first, having to try to access fairly senior people in organizations. And when I first started doing this, I've got to tell you, I was extremely nervous about it. I would constantly be thinking, oh my goodness me, they know so much more than me, and I'm really worried about it, and how do I do this? And I'd be pushed back many, many times. And I was given some really good advice, and part of what I'm going to be showing you over the next 45, 50 minutes is around some of the advice that's handed on to me by the experts around me, both within the businesses that I was in, but also within some of the great people I've worked with over the last, my goodness, now it's 20 years I've been running this consultancy of mine. And I'll hand out also to any of you that after this session want to contact me directly or contact me via the ISM, please do. I'm more than happy, should I say, to help any of you who want to get more detail about some of the techniques we're going to talk about here, or some of the ideas we're going to talk about here. So please do reach out if you need to. So from my initial experience of trying to access senior level executives, I began to wonder, and some of you probably realize, why do this? Why should we be selling to senior level executives? Now, the key things you can see on the slide here is obviously we can understand the business much better, more added revenue to us, and increased deal size are some of the key things that we can expect by selling to senior executives. But I want to expand on that over the next 10 minutes or so by looking exactly what I mean by that and look at some of the background data behind it. Now, the key thing here is often if you're dealing with, you see the blue arrow, which is sort of almost center there, which underneath it has RFP written. For instance, if this is our sales process, which starts at the purple end and ends at the black end of deliver, as we go through our sales process, often we are hit by RFPs. Now, if we're given an RFP, it generally means that we are late to the party. and there's more data coming in a minute here. If we receive an unsolicited, that means a RFP lands on our desk and we know nothing about it. Generally, we are late to the party because people have started making their decisions anyway. And we'll see in some of the data, I'll say in the next couple of slides as well. It tends to be sometimes about price, not always. It doesn't always go to the lowest price. There's lots of competition and there are procurement involved. And procurement in large organizations and in public sector organizations are a necessary function within organizations to make sure they get best value for money. However, if we're really honest about it, if we are dealing with procurement, they don't always, there are exceptions, and I know of technical procurement people have become much more involved with particular elements of it, but they don't understand necessarily the value we bring. So it tends to be more about the technical elements of what we're doing, with our price, our value, our add-on services, and all the bits and pieces. So features and benefits of what we do. The other alternative, which has come up fairly recently in some of the books you may have seen out there in the marketplace, for instance, there's Insight Selling by the Rain Group, and there's, of course, the Challenge Sale by the Corporate Executive Board. Say this: we've got to get in early, where the words are above that purple box. Show the value we bring to the organisation, and show the way they should be going. I'm going to put a caveat on that particular sentence, and disrupt their thinking processes. And by disrupting their thinking processes, hopefully we can start making them engage with us better. Now, I'm going to put a caveat on all of that because that's not always easy. And it's not always easy to do all of that on the left-hand side, above that purple box. And very often we are reactive, where we wait for an RFP to arrive, and we're blinded sometimes, if we're really honest with ourselves. We are absolutely blinded by the price. Sometimes it comes in at a massive figure. We're sitting there thinking, well, I could make my target or my quota in purely one of these deals. So really tempted to do it. Now, some of you who have worked on some of these webinars before with me know that I have a feeling about RFPs. I do respond to RFPs, but very selective to the ones I are, because the amount of time and effort it takes to actually respond to an RFP can be too much sometimes. And if you're not showing value, it's a waste of time, in my view. You're just, as the expression goes, column fodder. So let's look at that. Get in early, show the value, and show the way, and disrupt. And that's principally what we're going to be trying to talk about a little bit here. So if we look at some of the stats around this, and you can see this is research at the bottom right-hand of the screen from the Corporate Executive Board, that although we're saying disrupt, shape, and change, get ahead of the competition, the purchase decision is 57% completed by the time that customers have gone through this buying process. The last slide was about our selling process, and this is about our buying process. So they've almost not quite made their decisions, but they've certainly been through a lot of areas of looking at what their needs are, what their problems are, and what they're trying to do. And this is often the problem. This is the reason why we get locked into what I call the RFP trap, or the tender trap. We're invited to tender, and actually we can't show value necessarily as well as we could. Now, what's this all got to do with senior executives? This session, as it says here, is about better conversation with senior executive teams in organizations. And as we go through this, we're going to mention one thing, that everybody in that senior team is a human being. Yes, it is a surprise. They are human beings there, and they think and they have emotions like ourselves. And I've recently taken some courses on applied neuroscience, and what that data tells us from neuroscience, that people take decisions based on emotion and rationalize it later. Now, that's no surprise to us. We probably know that most people make decisions on emotion, and emotion makes us buy things. However, when this is applied to a senior level executive, they have got to have the feeling of trust. So they've got to feel actually that they trust us. And the trust gives us this emotional factor. And that emotional factor provides twice the impact of the business value. And what we're really saying here is that we can apply some emotional elements to our engagement with senior people. That trust and that value is 2 times the rational, because we make decisions based on emotion. And everything is purely rational. We happen to be the cheapest. That doesn't necessarily sell as well as the emotional side. It is all about trust. It is all about understanding the emotional triggers and motives of, let's say, your audience. I don't mind that. I mean your senior level teams, and helps us articulate a message that builds trust and opens the door for decision making. How do we do this? I hear you asking. Well, a bit later in the set, we're going to look at some of the elements you can do in order to build that trust, because it's really, really important. But when we do build the trust, what we want is our audience, which is the senior level executives, to feel better and more positive, feel more willing and empowered to work out issues and challenges, and engage our best thinking in both in strategy and innovation. And we open ourselves to new experiences, and we link with others in this so-called world synchronicity. In other words, we work together, and it's a bit like that word synergy, isn't it? But synchronicity being the element that we're actually synchronous in thought with other people as well. So we want to create that element of trust with the senior levels. We want them to have all these emotions. We want them to feel the emotion of what we're doing in everything that we do with them. But one of the problems is sometimes is access. And here's some of the tips that I can level to you. First of all, we have got to know where we are in the organisation and what we're talking about. Very often, what we do is we tend to engage, and if we're selling technical things at the technical level. Let me take you back a second. When I was selling pharmaceuticals, I worked for 3 or 4 large organisations doing this, and we were often positioned with the clinicians. In other words, we're selling to doctors. And that seemed fine, doesn't it? Because that's what our pharmaceuticals, our drugs, that's what they did. However, what we really realised after a little while in the management of some of these things, that actually some of the major decisions, certainly within hospitals, weren't made by clinicians. Yes, they had an involvement, but there were a committee involving non-clinicians and clinicians who looked at the return on investment. So it's really important that we know and verify where we are. I remember sitting down with a very good, now is a very good friend of mine. At the time he wasn't necessarily, because I was actually deeply envious. And although I was probably in the top 5 of the organisation I was working with at the time, he was always number 1. He was number 1 for 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 years, and I couldn't actually just get anywhere near him. So we were sitting down at dinner one day, and it was one of these fantastic regional meetings we used to have, and I sat down with him and I said, come on, Ian, why are you achieving such good results? And actually, given his due, although he was, top of the tree and consistently top of the tree for a number of years, he was actually a really nice guy with it. He said, Tim, actually, can I ask who you sell to? And I said, well, I sell to the doctors. He said, you sell to the clinicians? I said, yeah. He said, I don't. And I thought, that's very strange. What do you mean by that? And he said, Tim, I sell to the whole organisation, and I sell the value of what we do. I sell the management and business outcomes of what we do. I do not sell the features and benefits of pharmaceuticals or drugs we provide. Yes, that's fine for an individual clinician to use or a consultant to get it on form brief. But actually, what the management wants to know is if they're going to swap over from one procedure to another, why should they do it? What's in their interest to do it? Where's the data? So, this is my big moment of truth, shall we say, as Americans like to use that term. It's a great term, isn't it? Moment of truth was saying, actually, I need to change the way I think. So that's how I first started. I first started thinking about where I am in an organisation. There are two basic type teams, as I like to call them. There's the A team and the B team, and guess where I was selling? I was selling with the B team, all about features and benefits of what we do. Whereas what he was doing was selling to these A team and the B team, so he was doing both. So in an organisation, we have C-level directors. You see the blue line above the line there. We've got the blue team, as I call them, because I think of this being a slightly different way of doing it. And the blue team, the senior level directors and senior management. And we may be talking about strategy, growth, profits, internal and external pressures specific to them. But generally, if we're really honest about it, we're probably talking to the red team. Now, I haven't included everything in this, and I realise that some of you on the page here are talking to technical elements, IT, as well as procurement or other forms of legal, elements to that. But if we're always talking to them and talking about our products, that's all we'll sell. And also, we will not be selling business outcomes. So the key thing here is, if we go and talk to the C-level people above that line, the blue level people, this team's here, the senior execs, about our products and services, guess what? We get shoved back down again because they don't understand the technical elements of it. They don't understand any of the technical details, whereas we've been very well trained on it, and we like to tell them how wonderful our technical services are, but they, quite honestly, it doesn't mean anything to them. Hence, they'll palm you off if you're selling software to the CIO or the IT department, or whoever it happens to be within the organisation, depending on size, of course. We've got to be having those right conversations. So at the top centre of that page, we've got to be having right conversations with the right people, talking about things that are important to them. And that's the key thing about it. We've got to know where we are. And if we're below that line, generally, we are going to be talking with no value. We often are talking to people with no responsibility. That's the problem. No responsibility for the final decisions around it. And we might be perceived as being a threat. Now, what do I mean by this? For instance, if we're trying to get above that line, one of the typical things, if we're talking to a CIO or, in fact, an IT department of one form, CIO may be sort of midway on that line, and some CIO people are above the line, some people are below the line. We may be actually representing a threat because this is what they're supposed to be doing. The problem is that they're supposed to be thinking about all these elements we're talking about. And if we start talking about going to talk to a wider audience, this could very well be perceived as a threat. After all, it is their responsibility to deal with us, their responsibility to decide on if it's a technical product, technical solutions, if it's a clinical product, it's a clinical solutions. And they wonder why. Well, why should I? Is there a reason why? So often we will have to do is try and sell that idea. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. Now, here's some research, more research for you. Now, you can probably tell I'm a little bit of a scientist by background, because a lot of what I do is based on research. And a lot of the stuff here is not my own views, but stuff that I've researched in various places. Now, what is changing is that in the C-level organizations, or rather C-level or senior level executives in organizations, they are finding it difficult to make decisions alone. Often they've got too much information, there are too many options, and there are also too many competing stakeholder views. What do I mean by this? There is actually group conflict. Now, this is a term that's been coined again by the CEB. What they're really saying, Corporate Executive Board, makers of the Chancellor, and what they're really saying here in some of their books, is that what's happening is that all of the stakeholders who are demanding funds and priorities have different ideas of where those funds should be applied. So therefore, if you're at the board here talking about things, unless you have an autocratic style, often if you're the chairman of that board, you're going to have to listen to all the stakeholder views, and there's a lot of conflict. And the research the CEB did said, in fact, that this conflict happens 37% through the process. So whereas they're making the supplier engagement at 57%, the group conflict has already peaked. What does this mean to us? Fund allocation is key. In any organisation, the decision is, what are we going to fund? What are we actually going to put our money into? Because often, okay, they're allocated budgets around things. They'll say, you know, let's allocate X million or X thousand to this particular project. But other projects as well need funding as well. And some of the things that we're trying to do are what they call discretionary budget. So if we can get in earlier, we can get allocation of that discretionary budget. In other words, budget's not allocated, but available to use or to get from somewhere else, to actually put into what we're trying to sell. What the key thing here is, we need to get widespread support from a number of the decision-making teams, and it's the number one thing that they look for. They want everybody to be happy with the decisions being made around this, so they don't have that group conflict situation. We need to get everybody on the bus and collaborate with everybody on the bus. And we need to get all the stakeholders on the bus at the same time by talking to everybody about it. Now, again, what's this got to do with talking to senior levels? Here's something that will surprise you. Most sales training says, sell to the CEO, get in at the top, call high. Now, we actually agreed to differ on this. And what we say is something slightly different. There is research that supports an idea that a central person in the decision-making process is called a business driver or mobilizer. Now, the RAIN Group Centre of Sales Research, which is a Boston-based organisation that looks into sales research, has a view that there is somebody within that team who is called a business driver. And whilst the CEB, the Corporate Executive Board, calls this person, the same person, the mobilizers. So some of that is, this idea is about connecting to those people called mobilizers and getting them to do the internal selling. Shock horror, I hear you say, what? We should be the best people to sell. Yes, I totally agree. These kind of people, these mobilizers, are the people that are part of that decision process, but they have a personal interest in the outcome, because either it will make their job easier, or that hits a pain that they've definitely got. So if we can be framing things and working with these potential mobilizers, rather than going straight to senior level executives who have personal interest in the outcomes, and they can influence those form decisions, apparently according to the research, these is more likely to represent a way in for us. Now, there are various, some of you may have been on various training organisations, and you can see that I did some work in a particular organisation, which is logoed at the bottom there. And if we can influence these people, and there's sometimes these other methodologies you might hear might call this person a coach, but it's a bit more than a coach or a champion. This is somebody with the pain who's part of that decision process. Not only who can guide us, but actually really is feeling it. So if we're selling to these people first, they're more likely to take us to the board because they want to drive it. Now, these people have to have the kudos and the clout to be able to do it, to be able to drive change and build this consensus, because it's about the consensus sale, not just purely trying to drive to senior level executives. They can also help us frame the language and everything about what we're doing to make sure it makes sense for people that are above us as well. Now, connecting out to LinkedIn as well can be very valuable around these things. You can basically have many contacts in the organization. You can actually outreach to many organizations in LinkedIn. And I do a lot of work on LinkedIn now to try and build up my particular business around this as well. I think our last count I had about 12,600 people within my followers, which is a concerted effort to focus on trying to build these mobilizers. So what I'm trying to do within my LinkedIn work is to try and build mobilizers within organizations who may have the pain that I solve. So here's the first tip. Don't just sell to senior level executives. Seek out people and organizations who possibly have the pain and the kudos and the clout within organizations to be able to drive this change and this necessary change. Because although the old way is thinking about is funding, and we're trying to get to the funding person as well as the solution decision, as well as these various levels of these. The old way was this. The old way, the old information flow was from us to the decision makers, selling direct to them, and the information came from the stakeholders or other stakeholders or mobilizers. What the new way is saying is what we have to do is sell by remote control often. In other words, we cannot access these senior people because they're often busy, and it is better sometimes to sell a slightly different way. So in other words, we impart the knowledge to these stakeholders, these mobilizers, so that they can sell internally by this remote control. Now, there's a caveat here. That is dangerous sometimes, and I am fully aware of that if you lose control over that process, in other words, it's a bit like Chinese whispers. We may say something to the mobilizer or to other stakeholders and allow them to sell upwards. Unless they've got the gravitas, the clout, the drive, and everything else, they're not likely to sell to these decision makers, are they? So we've got to make sure it's really easy for these guys to do it. We have to check whether they've got enough drive and whether it's a priority for them. But also we have to give them the best kind of information and help them to build the business case for what we're doing. In many organizations, it's not about selling products and services. It's about selling business cases to business outcomes. And this is essentially what it's about. Some of the work I'm doing at the moment is a lot around trying to drive digital transformation in organizations, and that's got to be looking at business outcomes around those organizations. So, understand the challenges we can possibly solve is one of the subsets of this. Before we go in there, we start thinking about selling to these people, understanding where we are and selling to the mobilizers. We've got to understand the challenges we can possibly solve. What do I mean possibly? Well, I mean, what we've got to be doing is looking at our previous clients and previous places that we've been working and understand the challenges that we solved there. And that requires us to do a bit of research. That's the key thing. They may know us already, but know us for bad things that we don't want to. For instance, if we're selling a software product or we're a large organization with a global name, they know us for a particular thing. If we're a telco organization or a mobile organization, they may know us for selling mobiles. But that's not what we want to be doing. We want to be selling those business outcomes. So it's really important that we change the customer's perception of us. And that's got to be done right at the first conversations. It's really, really important that right from the start, we position ourselves as helping them with their business outcomes, not as somebody who is there to sell them the next product, the next innovation, the next consensus, or simply just in an account, just coming up to them and saying, just a courtesy call. How are you doing? That kind of call. We've got to come there and we've got to actually change the perception of us. And how do we do that? We position ourselves as being different and we play to what they want. What do they want? Some research done by the RAIN Center of Sales Research, again, this group based in Boston, says this. These are the top 5 factors that influence the Blue Team member according to their research. Let's go from the bottom. Understood my needs. Yes. We probably get that, don't we? Listen to me. Number 4. Number 5, persuaded we may achieve results. Number 6, collaborated with me. Okay. Now, number 3 there, and that's slightly different. Persuaded me we achieve results. You've got to have enough confidence, or I say we've got to have enough confidence, because I still sell myself every day. We have still got to have the confidence that we're actually going to help them achieve results by giving them case studies where we've worked before. But 2, collaborators with me is really important. And number 1, top of the pops, top of the hit parade, is educated me with new ideas and perspectives. Now, this is what they call insight. This education of new ideas and perspectives. Now, insight selling is started probably a few years ago, and with the book that I mentioned a little bit earlier, The Challenge Sale. Now, there's been a lot of misunderstanding about the challenge sale and the challenges, and my view on that, and some of the views that some of the people I've been working with, if we go back to this previous slide, nowhere does it say in that slide what they want is somebody to interrogate them, make them feel reduced inside, make them feel defensive or anything like that. When you give somebody insight, it's got to be insight about something they didn't know, but you've got to wrap it up in, if you like, the feeling that you're trying to help them. Because the Challenges Sale, and this is not a bash again, I think it's an absolutely brilliant book and tremendous book. What I'm really saying is it's misunderstood. It's not about purely going in there and challenging people and making them feel defensive. It is about educating them with insight and ideas they didn't know about, but putting that in a way that they feel comfortable about you, but not necessarily comfortable about what they're saying, because you've got to challenge their current perception of what they're doing. And if you can challenge their current perception of what they're doing with enough insight into their business, their industry, and we'll talk about that in a minute, then they're more likely to sit back, instead of saying, you understand me, sit back and say, or sit forward and say, tell me more, because I'm interested in your views on this. And this bit about trust we were talking about earlier comes in here. Because the moment you get people to say, hang on, this guy knows quite a bit about this, or this person, I should say, and by the way, I use the term guys collectively to mean male and female, anyone who comes in and basically says, listen, I really want to help you. Some of the market data says this about organizations such as yourselves, and we've done a bit of analysis internally within your organization, and would suggest this is what the result is. So we're not trying to threaten people with that insight, we're actually trying to give new ideas to go forward, because we want them to carry them on the journey. A little bit later in this, we're going to be talking about that journey. So we want to be talking about things, the results that they can achieve, this new reality, as some people call it. What we can do to help them around the costs, the competition, the revenue, the expansion plans they may have, the efficiency, profitability, flexible working, risk, all are key things for many organizations at the moment they should be thinking about. Because some of the research, certainly around flexible working, says that a lot of millennials, who are going to be 50% of the workforce in the next few years, are looking at different ways to be working with organizations. So if we're not working with them in a particular way they want to be worked, guess what they're going to do? They're going to walk out the door and go to an organization that does work them the way they want to do, in a more flexible way and a more, shall we say, digital-centric way. So we've got to start a conversation about their challenges. So how do we do this? Well, the first thing is we've got to know what the central challenges are, haven't we? We can't just walk in there and say, tell me what your challenges are, because actually what that does do is say, you don't know anything, why should I tell you all about my challenges, the senior executive saying, when what you're expecting from me to tell you everything, why should I do that? So the first step in this is actually doing research on the industry. We've got to find the specific challenges for the senior team in that industry that are meaningful to them. Now, that can do in various ways. One of the ways is you can simply pick and Google things, but a far more effective way is to actually talk to existing clients and talk to those people who make the decisions and say, what are not only the things that are challenging you at the moment, but also the terms and jargon you use. What do I mean by this? Now, most of you know they used to sell to hospitals. And, or we as an organisation, shall we say, in the pharmacy industry used to sell to hospitals. I did for a little while. And the number one priority for any manager in hospital is to save money and time. That's a big, big driver, has been for the last, 10 years or so, is because of government cuts in funding, certainly here in the UK, and it's everywhere across Europe and I imagine across the States as well, and internationally, that this is some of the things that are really, really important. But equally important are these. On the left are what we call them: patient waiting times, hospital surgery lists, infections in hospitals, leg blood clots, minimising time patients stay in hospital, patient satisfaction score are a few things that concern them. Now imagine how powerful it would be to walk into an organisation, a senior organisation, to be able to talk in these terms. But better still, if we use their language. The right-hand column is the same thing, just a little bit more in their language. Not all of it's in their language. For example, 18-week referral to treatment time. Now imagine if you walked in and said, look, we've had a lot of evidence about reducing the amount of, the 18-week referral to treatment time. Now, immediately you start talking those, if you like to use those words, those specific jargon that they use internally in their organisation and their industry. You create that trust and that credibility right from the start, that this person is not just a product salesperson. This person is talking about things that are important to me. Now, of all these things down here, HIA, by the way, is hospital-acquired infections, the numbers there. NPS scores is net promoter scores. Some of you may be aware of this from your own business as well. Don't you love them? Not. And these things are really, really important. Now, in government organisations, a lot of these things are made public. So you can actually research who the lead person is for a lot of these things. So you don't have to do a lot of work to find out who the person is, who your mobiliser might be in an organisation like a hospital in the UK. That's not the same in industry. People don't publish that in the same way, I realise that. But it's really important. My tip to you here is don't just find out about companies, find out about industries and focus your efforts on industries. Niche a lot of your work into a particular industry. Find out what the jargon is and find out how we impact those. What are the case studies we can use and, if you like, bring to life to show how we work with other clients around those outcomes, those business outcomes that are important to them. Show an understanding of their industry and industries with similar challenges. Now, what I mean by this is it doesn't have to be, if you're selling something that's affecting, I don't know, I'll just take an example, efficiency within a particular manufacturing process. If you're working in one industry and you're showing that you've been able to reduce or increase the efficiency and the time to market for a particular element, it's transported to another industry. But obviously the greatest impact is when you can show in their own industry, which is great. You have to bring those conversations about this research into your own team meetings as well, because there's nothing more powerful than somebody within your group being able to put it in a way to the rest of the team. That way, and a lot of my companies I've been working with, they do this regularly on team meetings every week. They learn about individual industries and say, this is what's happening in the XYZ industry at the moment. Happens to be about this at the moment. This is how we can help them. And this is the language they use. So all I've been talking about the last few slides, you can bring in through your own organisation as part of team meetings. So what some organisations have done, that within a group of 8 people, they've had each person in that group investigate a different industry. So you have 8 people then giving presentations over a period of time, doesn't know what kind of time it is, on that industry and how we impact and what the jargon is and who the likely mobilisers are. The better we can do that, the more effective that we can be, and getting into those mobilizers. But by using this jargon very quickly, some of the research says that it takes 9 seconds for somebody to make a decision as to whether they want to speak to you. I know when I've phoned up companies, and in the past, as I've said, oh, I'm a wonderful sales trainer and all the rest of it, I work for a sales training organization. That's of no interest to them. But as soon as I start talking about the impact and some of their key KPIs and pressures that we mentioned before, then they start talking to me. And I will guarantee if you use that approach, you will more than double your connection rate. By that, I mean getting people's interest in what you're having to say and not putting the phone down or the LinkedIn request down or whatever. And we'll talk about on a separate occasion. So you then validate. So a much better way of doing it is actually validating the challenges that you've done your research with the senior teams, with your own accounts first, and then anybody you're prospecting with. And you just say, are you finding this? You know they're likely to be finding one of the few things that you found out from the research, and you're waiting for the particular hot button that's important to them, which is really important. Then asking specific questions to check the relevance to our services or future services. Now, by this I mean, is this something you're finding, and how much of a priority is it for you, and how much is it affecting you, and how much other parts of the organisation is it affecting you? Good old impact questions. Or I think they used to call something else by another organisation, which I can't name. But anyway, so these kind of questions to say, how much is it a priority, how is it affecting your organisation, and what are the possible challenges you can to go and solve it, can be very, very powerful to do. Then you have to tell a brief story at some stage about where you worked before with another organisation with a similar situation or challenge, the action that we took together. In other words, the customer has to be central to that story, not us. Very often the mistake is that when you tell a story, you tell it all about wonderful things that we've done. What we did is we approached this customer who was facing this challenge, and we are implementing this XYZ wonderful solution, and the result was they got this. The key things is about telling a story about the individual in that organisation, the challenges that they were facing, what the steps that they took, the failures, the successes, things they did well, things that didn't work, and then go on to the results of the project. And those results have to be the outcomes that you're trying to sell in their organisation. So you're telling a story about another organisation you work with, but they've got to match the outcomes you're trying to sell to. So to give an example earlier in the hospital, 18-week referral to treatment time, you've got to be telling a story of how you managed to affect 18-week referral to treatment time in another organisation you're working with. So changing the conversation is really important. You may be talking in the construction and engineering department. I'm not going to go through this actually for a number of reasons that I don't want to read this out, and it's available in the pack that you can look at afterwards as well. But it's about, if you look at about 2/3 down, a lot of companies we work with are looking for ways to maximise their efficiency of their field work. Would it be helpful to run through some of the outcomes of other customers your industry have been. Now, if this is a hot button for this person, in other words, is a real, I've got to do this, then it's more likely to resonate. But you've got to pick 2 or 3 things in there, to be honest with you. Now, I mentioned the Challenger Cell, and one of the direct comparisons to Challenger Cell are the Rain Group. And they have a book called Insight Selling, which is all about telling that convincing story into something which is a bit like the situation actually result, but putting more detail. Notice the first thing you show, which is probably missed or misinterpreted by some of the stuff by Challenger, is the empathy bit. You've got to show that you want to work with this person. You've got to understand and show that you understand them. You've also got to make them feel good about you, as you know, before you challenge them. And that first red balloon is about giving them something around the dissatisfaction or a challenge or an idea or an insight they didn't know about. And then the blue circle here is about the desire they want to go to. We know that you're probably there, and also you probably want to be really in this position here. And if you don't, you bring them back down again. You see the wiggly line in the center. That's about dissatisfaction layering. So you bring them down to a level and saying, but you don't want this, but you do want this. And if you do that, you're going to end up with that. And this is the problem. If anybody wants a really good example of this, which I can't show on today's webinar, go and look at the iPhone launch by Steve Jobs and the way he goes through it in terms of looking at the existing smartphones, as he calls them, on the market. But have a look at the way he does it, because he does this dissatisfaction layering really, really well. So that's Steve Jobs' iPhone launch 2007 on YouTube. Go and have a look at it. It's really great. Then the breakthrough bit is almost we can help. And this is how we can help, and we can get you here. And the purple is about this is where we've done it before, because that's the risk element of things, because everybody goes through a risk assessment with any of these new things that we're suggesting organisations. There's always a risk element. And the more you can say, we've done this, and this is the outcome of other times, the more likely to say, okay, right, so there's less of a risk for us, that's good. And more likely they are to say, okay, let's give it a try. Next few slides are about why we don't do this. Why we don't contact people hiring organisations. And if we're really honest about it, and let's be honest, because I was there, I was actually petrified of going to higher management courses, higher management levels, because I thought this. I was really uncomfortable. I was not happy about what the wider issues that we talk about. I was trained on the products, and I could talk very widely on products, but actually talking about those wider issues they're facing, I wasn't so comfortable about. So here are some tips around that as well. We're often uncomfortable because we don't know how to get higher, we don't know what to talk about, and in that situation as well. But the tips are, work with somebody in organisation as suggested as a potential mobiliser. Ask the coach or a mobiliser what the priorities of different people in the organisation. Research and become knowledgeable about the area of the person, access to person, and hire an organisation. Learn about challenges in the industry, become very knowledgeable about challenges in the industry. And by doing this, you can feel a little bit more comfortable that you're going to be talking the same language as them. At least you don't have to immediately pretend you're an expert, but certainly early on you can mention, I've heard this, I'm not an expert in your industry, but this, if you're uncomfortable. And you can always reference the organisation around you. We are specialists in working in this area. I've just joined the organisation, or I'm hearing this from other people. What are you finding around this as well? So, in summary, 3.5 tips, I called it. I was going to put 3 tips from there, but I thought that's fine. Work with, not against, the people who might block you. These are the mobilizers. You can remember they may block you, but let's work with them. Show them how it might be in their interest to work with you, and do your research and show your experience and knowledge in the sector, but validate it to the customer. And try and find someone like a coach or a mobilizer to help your efforts. So there we are. Here's my 3.5 tips. And I think, Adam, you've just come back on the line, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Hello. Thank you very much for the presentation. I must say, when you did start and you said that you used to sell drugs, I might have jumped out my chair a bit. But you did explain it very well. Thank you very much. Again, Tim, thank you very much for the time taken to deliver this webinar. I hope everyone has enjoyed it. There's been no questions, which is, I think that's a compliment. But if there are any other questions that people want to ask, please do, and we'll get back to you. Just some last slides about the team here at the ISM. We're constantly expanding. If you need any questions, any help, or anything like that, please feel to get in touch. But if there's anything else from you, Tim?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you, guys.
No?
And please feel reach out to either of us if you need any more help.
Fantastic. Well, I hope to see you all soon on the next webinar. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us on our website, www.ismprofessional.com. Thank you very much, everybody, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.